for the Hamilton Mountain debate. Thank you for being here. This is important. How we govern our country, who governs our country, how we are governed. These are important things that have an impact on every single person watching and those who aren't. And if they aren't, make sure your neighbors are watching later on or another time. It is important. Thank you for joining us here at the Spectator Auditorium, as I say, for the Hamilton Mountain Candidates Debate. My name is Scott Radley. I'm a columnist here at the Spectator. I'm also the host of the Scott Radley Show on 900 CHML Radio. I want to introduce the candidates for Hamilton Mountain riding who are in front of me on the stage. From the left to right, Scott Duvall from the New Democratic Party, Peter Diakowski from the Conservative Party, Trevor Lee from the People's Party, Bruno Ugenti from the Liberal Party, Dave Urquhart from the Green Party. So let me refresh your memory how this is going to work, or tell you if you're just joining us for the first time. Each candidate in a moment will have time to make a 2-minute opening statement. I will then be asking them questions, some of which have been submitted from readers of The Spectator and viewers of Cable 14. They will have 1 minute to answer those questions. Following that, there will be an open forum in which each candidate will be able to ask another candidate a question. That candidate will be able to answer, and then the floor will be open for anyone to jump in and discuss. And following that, there will be 1 minute closing statements. Now, I've said this in each of the previous 3 debates, and I'll say it again. I'm not typically all that rude, but if they go over their time, I am going to jump in and cut them off. We have limited time today. They have been warned. They must stay within their time limits, and we appreciate them doing that. And when we are done here today, I would ask that you would, if you wish, point to cable14now.com if you want to go watch the debate again, or point someone else to see the debate if they're in the riding. You can also watch these debates. They will be on Cable 14 between now and Election Day. You can find them there and at thespec.com as well. Lots of places to get the debates, lots of places to see who you may be voting for. Don't miss your opportunity. That's why we're all here. Let us now get to the opening statements in alphabetical order, beginning with Scott Duvall from the New Democratic Party.
Thank you. Thank you to the coordinators for arranging this debate. My name is Scott Duvall, and I want to thank the residents of Hamilton Mountain for the trust you have already shown in me. I've had the privilege of representing our community for the last 4 years, and I would be honored to keep fighting for you in Ottawa for the next 4 years. This is an important election. Many people I speak to are worried about the high cost of living, housing, phone bills, and the cost of medicine are all adding up for families who haven't had a raise in years. We are also facing serious national issues like climate change and the challenge of seniors living in poverty. 150 years of Liberal and Conservative governments have failed to make life better for the majority of Canadians. The Liberals run huge deficits, and then the Conservatives make massive cuts to the services we all depend on. New Democrats believe in something different, and that's investing in all Canadians. That's why we're going to bring in pharmacare and dental care, and that's why we're going to help families save money on their phone bills and their power bills. That's why we're going to stop profiting from interest on student loans. That's why we will implement a bold plan on climate change that creates over 300,000 jobs. And that's why we are going to end pension theft. For far too long, companies and greedy CEOs have taken advantage of Canada's inadequate bankruptcy and insolvency laws at the expense of pensioners and their families. My roots on the Hamilton Mountain run deep. My wife Sherry and I and our 3 beautiful daughters made our home here. My constituency office has helped thousands of residents carry on the high level of service from my time as City Councillor for Ward 7. I've been a strong voice for you in Ottawa, making a difference on the issues that matter to all of us. That's why I'm asking you for your support again.
10 seconds.
I'm ready to keep fighting for all to make your life affordable in Hamilton.
Thank you very much. From the Conservative Party of Canada, Peter Diakowski.
I'm Peter Diakowski, your Conservative candidate for Hamilton Mountain. I'm incredibly fortunate to have had the career that I did with the Tiger Cats. Most professional football players bounce from team to team every few years. I was able to stay put for a decade here in Hamilton, start a family and make a home here. Now I have the opportunity to go fight for us in Ottawa. Far too often Hamilton is overlooked. In spite of being Canada's 9th largest city and our most important industrial centre, we're never given our due. Look at the challenges facing our city and ask yourself, do you feel as if we're being effectively represented? Do you feel like we're further ahead than we were 4 years ago? I will put our priorities front and center in Ottawa and ensure that they are served. The moment we sit in third place in Parliament with the NDP, unable to advance our interests. Over the course of my career and afterward, I served our community with as much passion off the field as I did on it. Volunteering throughout our city showed me both the depth of needs still felt by too many, but also the height of charity practiced by our citizens. There truly is something special about Hamilton, and I'm proud to be a part of it. I faithfully served my fellow players in our union, the CFL Players Association, first as our Ticats team representative, and now on our board of directors and our bargaining committee. I've been through multiple negotiations and strike votes. I understand labor issues and the challenges facing working families and retirees. I will fight for the families of Hamilton, and a Conservative government will turn the page on Justin Trudeau's legacy of scandal, safeguard Canada's sovereignty, and help make life affordable for Canada's families and seniors.
Thank you. From the People's Party of Canada, Trevor Lee.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Trevor Lee. I'm the People's Party of Canada candidate for Hamilton Mountain. And unlike some people that are up on this stage tonight, I am not a politician. I come here as a citizen, concerned citizen, as everybody is. I see the way that our country is going, and that made me look into politics and see what parties had to offer. And the only party that really spoke to me was the People's Party of Canada and the leadership of Maxime Bernier. We have pipelines that need to be built. We have free speech that is being taken away from us every day. And like most everybody here, I wake up in the morning, I have a coffee, I go to work, I fight traffic, I put in a hard day's work, I come home and I want to relax and make sure that the money that I make isn't being overtaxed, being spent on carbon tax, and is being left in my pocket. So I'm here to fight for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. From the Liberal Party of Canada, Bruno Ugenti.
Good evening. My name is Bruno Ugenti. I'm your candidate for the Liberal Party of Canada. Tonight, I'll tell you who I am, what my vision is for our community, and how we'll build that future together. I'm a lifelong resident of the mountain. I was born here, I went to school here, I raised my children here, and I built my business here. I've built my whole life here. I'm here tonight to tell you that I'm sharing with you the Liberal vision, my vision, of the future of Hamilton. We all know families face challenges. How do you balance it all? A home, groceries, doctor's appointments, prescriptions, a good education, a great career, a well-earned retirement. It's not easy or straightforward. So what is my vision? It starts with continuing to make smart investments in Canadians, the Canada Child Benefit, our national housing strategy, historic investments in research, colleges, and universities, improvements to the student loan program, putting a price on pollution, buying your first home, making sure seniors have a dignified retirement and receive the benefits that they've earned. We've laid the foundation for a stronger Hamilton, and it's working. It's why we've committed to enhancing the Canada Child Benefit, making childcare more affordable, making your first home the best possible investment, reducing barriers to starting your own business, and investing in a green economy because climate change demands an ambitious plan. My volunteer work has been so fulfilling. My work as a small business owner, so informative. Both have taught me the value of service, finding consensus and common cause. I will be there to protect and promote our community and ensure we have a bright future. On October 21st, with your support, we'll choose forward
10 seconds.
together, and together we'll get things done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And from the Green Party of Canada, Dave Urquhart.
Thank you. My name is Dave Urquhart. I'm a lifelong resident of Hamilton Mountain, and I'm your Green Party candidate. Greens have pushed for sustainable solutions for years. Most voters opted for today with the empty promises of old line parties, and most of us have fallen further behind because of it. Living for today has now caught up with us. We're out of time for the useless half measures that the old line parties offer. The Green Party is the only party that will meet the targets required to avoid runaway global warming. I'll talk to you about our plan tonight and how it will transition us to a $26 trillion opportunity in a new green economy.
Thank you very much. We will now go to a number of questions. As I say, some of these were submitted by readers of The Spectator or viewers of Cable 14. Prior to tonight's debate, we drew numbers. The candidates drew numbers. The questions will be asked in the order that they drew those numbers, which means first up today from the Liberal Party of Canada, Bruno Ugenti. Justin Trudeau has vowed to cut cell phone bills by 25%. Now, we've heard this before with different governments, car insurance, cable bills, on and on and on. It never seems to work out as we hear it is supposed to. So how would your government force private sector cell service companies to shave a quarter off their prices and still expect them to invest billions into the development of new networks?
Thank you, Scott. That's a very good question. And I have a cell phone myself. Many Canadians do now. We can't seem to go without cell phones. And it's very important to us to ensure that we have competitive prices in Canada compared to the rest of the world. So the Liberal Party has taken steps in the past to ensure that we have competitive and affordable prices for a lot of things in our community. Now, cell phones, the plan is that the Liberal Party will open up competition to other companies that are in Canada and throughout the world, and that will assist to bring down the price of cell phones, and it will also do so through regulation. So the Liberal Party has plans for affordability, and its plan
10
is
seconds.
to make sure Canadians have an affordable life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And by the way, you did great, but I just want to remind you, you have 60 seconds for these questions. You were on time. Just a reminder. Number two, Scott Duvall from the New Democratic Party. Your party has indicated a desire for tuition-free university and college access, except we know that's a misnomer because nothing is free. The Parliamentary Budget Officer estimates such a move would cost taxpayers $16.4 billion, maybe more, which works out to about $1,700 in taxes for every family of four. So the question is, are you really making it more affordable or just spreading around the pain to everyone, including those who have already paid for their post-secondary education and now getting them to pay for everyone else's?
Thank you. It's a great question. And what we're hearing from the students, and as a father of three that put people through university, the amount of debt that they come out of having post-secondary education because corporations actually demand that is actually, it's a travesty of what we're trying to put them through. And many of them can't leave home after they finish that because they're getting precarious jobs and part-time jobs. So it's very, very difficult for a person to be $70,000 in the hole when they come out of school. What we're saying is that we want to give the students tuition, the interest-free loans. They're paying over $3 billion. So if the government can wipe out $12 billion on loans that they're giving to corporations, why are
10
we
seconds.
asking for the back of our students to pay for them to help subsidize, to wipe out their loans?
Thank you very much. Trevor Lee from the People's Party. Your party wants the federal government out of the healthcare business, saying this is a provincial responsibility. But with an aging population that is going to require more care and the cost that will come with that, is getting out now when the prices are about to go up, not simply downloading one of the fastest growing costs onto the provinces and creating headaches for them?
Thank you. Currently, the federal government gives out to the provinces about $40 billion a year for them to use as they wish on their health care or wherever that money goes to. It doesn't have to be health care. There's no strict limit of where that money goes to. It's just a handout that the government gives to the provinces. Because this is a provincial issue, the PPC feels that the best way to do this is to give them the money themselves, so their GST rebate that they give back to the government of Canada. They can keep this money and decide what best to do with it. And that puts more pressure on them to be able to use that money properly for the people that need it, and especially with the aging population that we do have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Peter Diakowski from the Conservative Party. The Conservative University Affordability Plan would allow for a slight increase in federal matching of RESP contributions. But if a family is struggling to pay for rent or to keep food on the table or the lights on, stashing money away for the future of their children's education may not be, or could maybe not at all be, a priority. So is this really helping the people who need it the most?
Well, our education plan stands in stark contrast to some of my colleagues here because we emphasize the importance of saving. We don't want students to start their professional lives burdened with crushing debt that limits their career choices. And we are working with our plan to make life more affordable for regular families, to help more families who are doing everything right to be able to take a breath at the end of the month and put some money away for their kids' education. By scrapping Justin Trudeau's carbon tax, we're going to put more money back in the pockets of every Canadian family. We'll help bring down the cost of groceries, fuel, and home utilities, and this will allow people who are working hard to be able to save for their children's future. And when they do that, we are going to help them save more with our RESP program.
Thank you. Dave Urquhart from the Green Party. This week, Elizabeth May, your leader, proposed a robot tax in which companies would be taxed the equivalent of the income tax on any employee replaced by a machine. But this presupposes that only private sector jobs could be eliminated. Oxford University did a study and says 47% of U.S. government jobs could someday be automated. And I think we can safely assume those numbers could probably, to some degree, be transferred to Canada. So no government is going to penalize itself. So does this mean that under a green government, only private sector workplaces would be penalized for automating? Or does it mean that under a green government, no private or no public sector employee would ever be replaced?
Well, that's a good question. I don't believe that we're going in the right direction as far as jobs go. We can talk about automation right now. We understand that it's going to probably reduce employment levels by about 25% over the next 10 years, and that doesn't bode well for Canadians. I'm not exactly what she talked about as far as this tax goes. It makes sense that we need to do something because we're going to have less jobs. Of course, the Green Party offers a guaranteed livable income for those who aren't working. As well, we are going to do a transition to a new green economy. This transition, we believe, will create more good-paying jobs than there are people. So, yes, we do need to do something about automation. A tax is definitely something we might be able to look at, but what we really need to do is give hope to people by offering them good jobs.
Bruno Ugenti from the Liberal Party. Many of your policies are described aimed at helping people who are struggling to get by. Your party just announced a $150 million program to send low-income people camping. Would someone who is trying to pay rent or can't afford their mortgage or trying to put food on the table not simply prefer $2,000 in cash or credits rather than a camping trip?
Thank you, Scott, for that question. You know, the Liberal Party of Canada and the past Liberal government has made sure that affordability is available to all Canadians. There have been many programs that the government has already put in place, such as the Canada Child Benefit, which has given more money to 9 out of 10 families in Canada and has helped to raise over 300,000 children, Canadian children, out of poverty. Another important program has been the First-Time Homebuyers Incentive, which has allowed many Canadians to purchase their first home when they would not otherwise have been able to. This, along with other Liberal programs, have helped to help Canadians create over 1.1 million jobs across Canada, over which 90% have been full-time.
10 seconds.
These are important for our children, and having children see the environment is a very important aspect of Canadian life, and we think it's important to allow kids to do so.
Thank you. Scott Duvall from the NDP. Maclean's magazine recently cited Statistics Canada numbers that show refugees from certain countries do as well in time as economic immigrants who arrive here with marketable skills. But they point out that refugees from some other countries fare much worse and are far less likely to be able to find a job and make a living for their family. Should we therefore be selecting our refugees or accepting our refugees from those countries that historically have had a better chance at success here, or should the door be open to all equally?
That's a very good question, and I believe that the door should be open to all people from all over the world. I don't think we should be selective in picking and choosing, because we could find ourselves in serious trouble. One of the things about immigration, though, that I've been hearing is the amount of immigrations coming in. And I'm hearing some people want to cap it at a certain number, which is understandable on a per year basis. However, some people think we got too many and we should stop all the immigration coming in, period. But at the same time, these people are still demanding that we bring in refugees or anybody from immigration and temporary foreign workers in massive numbers because of a shortage of workers that we have here.
Thank you very much. Trevor Lee from the People's Party. BDO Canada reports a third of Canadians have no retirement savings. 4 in 10 Canadians have non-mortgage debt of over $20,000, and half of Canadians are living paycheck to paycheck. So people are seeming to need help with the basics, yet I can find nothing in your party's platform addressing childcare costs, helping with retirement, helping pay for education, or making things easier for small business. Why?
Thank you. Good question. The People's Party of Canada actually has a lot of ways that people can save money. They started off by introducing a tax cut where people who make under $15,000 a year are taxed nothing. Anything over 15 is 15%, and anything over 100,000 is 25%. Another way that we will save people money is just getting rid of the dairy and poultry cartels and the supply chain management. Right there, saving the average Canadian about $400 a year on anything from eggs and chicken, milk, etc. We want to reduce the tax on businesses as well. So now
10
businesses are able to prosper. They can then hire new people. They'll make profits, and people have jobs that can then contribute to their salaries and RSPs to retire.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Peter Dykowski from the Conservative Party. Yesterday, Andrew Scheer announced he would cut foreign aid by 25%, ostensibly to cut off undeserving countries and cruel regimes. But a Memorial University sociologist who serves as president of the Canadian Association for the Study of International Development said what would really happen is different. That's what he said, and it's a quote. Fundamentally, you're talking about immunizing fewer children, more mothers dying in childbirth, less potable water, and more refugees suffering in conflict zones. Canada has always been seen as charitable and has always been seen as a beacon of light in the world. Is this really the place to cut?
Canadians are a uniquely warm-hearted, friendly, open people who believe in helping their friends across the globe. As a mandate, our federal government believes that it should help and serve nations that face terrible tragedies, and we do that. But we also see terrible waste. We have over $6 billion a year being spent overseas, much of it without any degree of accountability. And at home, we see significant need. You can go downtown here in Hamilton and see people in extreme need, people in the throes of addiction. A lot of people have family members that they've lost to poverty. We need to make sure that every penny that we take from taxpayers in Canada is spent for the things that we believe it ought to be. There is too little accountability in
10
our
seconds.
foreign aid, and we've seen it squandered in the past. A Conservative government will ensure that we help who we mean to, but that we will not waste hard-earned Canadian dollars
Thank you.
in frivolous endeavors.
Green Party, Dave Urquhart. The foreword to the Green Party platform compares the fight against climate change to the fight against Hitler in World War II. Now, there have been a number of people on social media who have found that comparison offensive. Beyond that, it raises an important question. Hitler was unquestionably evil. Fighting him meant fighting against evil. So is anyone who would disagree with your position on climate change or not fully be on board to do anything necessary to stem the tide of climate change evil?
Absolutely not. The Green Party is the party of acceptance. People are allowed differing views. Obviously, I don't think anyone in this room has ever faced the kind of horrific consequences that we could face if runaway global warming happens. So the comparison, I think, is pretty good. I think that we're in a place that is dire unless we meet the targets that the science indicates that we need to meet. It doesn't look very promising for our children. You know, there hasn't been any much movement from political. There's been very little political will. We're seeing children in the street protesting, but we really need to do something about it. If people don't agree with us, we don't hate them.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all your answers. We're now going to go to the open forum portion of the debate. As a reminder, we're going to stay with the same order, which means that Bruno Ugenti will get to ask a question of any one of the other candidates. That candidate will be given time, a minute, to answer that question, at which point the floor will be open to anyone else who wishes to jump in and debate. Mr. Ugenti, you are up.
Thank you, Scott. This question is for Scott Duval. Scott, I have friends and family that work at Stelco and have retired from Stelco. And we always want to make sure that their pensions are safe and secure. Now, there has been a proposed bill which deals with a super priority approach. And that super priority approach by the NDP, and yourself actually as the proponent, knew that there was an $800 million unfunded liability for the Stelco pension, but the bill would have killed Stelco. Pensioners would have received only pennies on the dollar, and people would have been out of work completely because Stelco would have closed. Now, the Liberal government has taken steps with
10 seconds, we need a question.
succeeding steel tariffs, strategic investments, and has made Stelco viable. What have you accomplished in the past 4 years as MP?
Very good. Thank you for that question. So on the bill itself, it's a very, very critical bill that I have gone across the country and talked to many, many people about them losing their pension through a bankruptcy. And it's a shame that we still allow this to this day. And Mr. Ugenti, you should know that we have many Liberals that were supporting my bill, and we had many Conservatives who were going to support my bill. But there was mixed up feelings about what was being done. I pressured, I put the bill in, the Bloc has put the bill in, a senator from the Liberal Party put a bill in, and it would only make common sense. So on an ongoing basis, the company, no problem. But when it comes down to liquidation, why should the worker that has deferred wages lose all that money while we watch CEOs walk away like bandits? It's just not fair, and it shouldn't be fair, and it's got to stop.
And so you know, Mr. Duval, Scott, that the Liberal government has passed regulations in its March 2019 budget, which has allowed the courts to set aside executive bonuses in case of pension stripping, and has also allowed there to be honest and fair representation, and including the ability for the court to look at consequences. Now, the Liberal Party is making sure that it reviews this matter, has reviewed this matter, and wants to make it right make the right decision on it the first time around. Can you point to me any notable, substantive, concrete accomplishments that you and the NDP has succeeded with for Hamilton Mountain? I know that other MPs in Hamilton have brought strategic investments to the amount of over $500 million to Hamilton, but I really haven't heard anything or seen anything of note from you.
Yes, so usually what happens is when the government in power, they will only distribute money to those ridings that they hold the power in. They won't distribute to other places. It's very, very rare. So we can't play this monkey game of going back and forth saying, what have we done? What I have done is I stood up for the workers of Hamilton. And I've done it very, very proudly. And another, on that issue, what you're saying, what the Liberals have done on the 2018 budget when they had the consultations by themselves, they came up with a couple of ideas that they put in, and that was to basically ask the judge to make sure that both parties deal in good faith. Well, I thought that was already happening. And the second one was to caution the CEOs about the amount of bonus money that they were paying, but that only absolutely happens for the year. So your Minister of Seniors has even admitted much more needs to be done. The problem is the Liberal Party is not doing nothing about it.
Well, Scott, you know that the Liberal Party has done a lot of hard work, and yes, we know that there's still a lot of hard work that has to be done. But when you look at the work that the Liberal government has done in the past with regard to seniors, reducing the age of seniors from 67 that the Harper government did when it was in power back down to 65, making with old age security, making sure that the Canada Pension Plan has been increased by 50% for future earners, benefiters of the Canada Pension Plan, making sure that seniors have received a top-up with their guaranteed income supplement. When we look at what the Liberal government has done in that respect, as well as the pension file, and we know that the steel tariffs, the strategic investments that the Liberal government has made, has allowed for example, Stelco investing $30 million set out in the Spectator on September 16th for the annealing facility, where Stelco said that this is the first investment in new production facility this century for Stelco. We know that the Liberal government has been doing things to benefit the economy and to benefit Canadians, and that's a good thing. So why is it that you keep criticizing the Liberal government with regard to its pension file? It's doing a good job. It's doing a great job. It's good for the economy, and it's good for Canadians.
I would argue that adding $71 billion to our debt in only 4 years is not good for Canadians.
Well, we know, Mr. Dykowski, Peter, if I may, that the previous Harper government added $300 billion to the debt over 10 years when it was in power.
The Harper government has been widely regarded by economists around the world for steering Canada through one of the worst recessions in modern history. We have a legacy of prudent long-term fiscal planning, using deficits when times are bad to help stabilize the ship and let us grow back towards a balance, which we did. And we handed the Justin Trudeau government a surplus in 2015, which has rapidly turned into mounting deficits projected next year to reach $27 billion. This is money that our children and our children's children will be repaying and bearing the interest burden of.
Well, Peter, that's a cause for debate, because the Harper government, from my understanding, did not hand over the Liberal government a surplus budget, but rather a deficit budget. And that's been indicated by several economists. And there's $300 billion of debt that the Harper government added to our government debt over that time period and had nothing to show for it. Whereas the Liberal government over the last 4 years has created 1.1 million jobs, over 90% of which are full-time.
I'm going to jump in here if I can. We're going to move to a next topic. Mr. Duvall, it is your turn. You have the question, whoever you wish to ask.
Yes, thank you. And I want to go back to Mr. Ugenti and ask him the question about the pension file. You made a couple comments about repealing the back 60 days of 65 from 67, which the Conservatives did. And I commend you for that. I really do. And I've always said that even in the House of Commons. However, we've just learned that your proposal, the Liberal proposal, is now to give increases on the old age security to people of $726 to people that are 75 and over. And that you're stating, or the Liberals are stating, that that'll take 20,000 more people out of poverty. So my question is to you is, what happened to the people from 65 to 75? Are they supposed to just stay in poverty? Or what kind of an increase are they supposed to be getting?
Well, thank you for that question, Scott. The Liberal government has, over the past 4 years, taken steps to ensure that the old age security and the guaranteed income supplement, the OAS and the GIS, are automatically given now to seniors when they reach age 65. Previously, with the Harper government, the Conservatives, a senior had to apply for those benefits in order to receive them. And there was millions and millions of dollars that were not being paid out. So what the Liberal government did was it took the step to automatically ensure that OAS and GIS went to seniors, which was a wonderful step to take. Then they ensured that every quarter, every 3 months, the OAS increases by the rate of inflation. They've also topped up the GIS to ensure that the persons in the most vulnerable, lowest ability to earn income, our seniors, are getting a top-up on their GIS. Now, we've made a proposal to increase the OAS by 10%, that's $729 every year once they hit 75, because we know the cost of living continues to go up, and that's when seniors need it most, as they get older.
And what about the people who are 65 to 75? Their cost of living, does it stay down or something? Or?
No, as I said, Scott, and you heard me, that the increase goes every quarter with the rate of inflation.
Okay.
With the rate of inflation, now in Hamilton, we've seen a local real estate boom that's driven up costs. I hear from seniors every single day on their doorstep that they are in pain, and the checks that they're receiving from your Liberal government are not keeping pace. The inflation adjustments do not reflect the reality on the ground here in Hamilton as we see a runaway cost of living.
Well, Peter, that's why we do have Canada Pension Plan having been bolstered by the Liberal government by up to 50%. And when it's completely rolled out, recipients of the Canada Pension Plan will be receiving 50% more than they are currently receiving, as well as there being the OAS and the GIS for those that are receiving same.
Mr. Eugeni, that's the CPP too that you're talking about. Those are good things for our future, for our grandchildren. That does nothing whatsoever for the people now. That money that we're collecting on the CPP 2 that's going to start next year, when it goes to full investment, that's 49 years from now. Most of us aren't going to be here. So that's for our future, but it does not do nothing for the pensioners at this time, and that's what they're hurting. They are suffering. And to say that the cost of living is actually, for people to 75 and over, I guess the loaf of bread is cheaper for 65 and to 75. Because one of the things that really, really bothers me when I go to the door, we are forcing our seniors, because of the high costs and the inflation that's eating up their little paychecks that they have from their pensions, we are forcing them to food banks. And I've gone to Neighbor to Neighbor, and I've gone to Hamilton Food Share, and they have found a 15% increase in seniors using our food banks, which I think is deplorable.
Scott, thank you for that question and your statement. I'm not sure, you had a statement there, but I'm not sure of the question itself.
Well, I think the imperative fact that we've got to keep in mind is that our seniors are suffering crushing cost of living increases, and that's been primarily brought on by a carbon tax introduced by your government, backed by the NDP. And that is something that we will relieve the burden of and bring immediate relief that will be felt at the grocery stores, at the gas pump, and on your utility bills.
Well, on the seniors point, though, Peter and Scott, what the Liberal government has done is it has ensured that seniors receive an additional $1,000 a year through the boost to the GIS top-up, and as well with the Canada Pension Plan survivor benefit. When someone loses a loved one husband and wife, for example, if one of the spouses dies, then the surviving spouse will receive a 25% increase in the survivor benefit, from 60% to 75% of what the other person was receiving. And that will help seniors as well.
And that's
Now,
good, Mr.
having
Chair.
said that, with respect to the carbon pricing, Peter, as we know, it's a carbon pricing matter. It's not a tax because it is revenue neutral. The courts have already ruled upon that. 9 families out of 10 are receiving more money back than they're paying. And what the carbon pricing does is changes people's habits. The Liberals have a strong plan for the environment. There is a climate crisis, and we're taking action on it. So the Liberal government has taken steps to deal with things such as banning single-use plastics by 2021, by making sure that 25% of land and oceans are set aside for conservation by 2025, up to 30% by 2030, and net zero emissions in our country by 2050. They're making sure that the costs of these things are given back to Canadian citizens so
Mr.
that it's
Agenti,
habit changing.
I'm going to jump in, Mr. Urquhart, and then we're going to move on.
That all sounds great, Bruno. You know, these are things that need to be done. We need to address climate change. But when you're doing those kinds of things and buying a leaky old pipeline for $4.5 billion from a company that realized that there's no future in it, pawning it off on taxpayers, and then reapproving it the day after you tell us that there is a climate emergency, and then reapproving it, and the cost of that is going to be an additional $12 billion. Does that sound like you're addressing climate change?
I'm going to jump in here. I'm going to thank you because we got to move along. Everyone has to get a turn here. Mr. Lee, it is your turn to ask a question.
Thank you. This question goes out to Peter and the Conservative Party. The Conservatives have come out, and Peter has said it tonight, that they're going to get rid of the carbon tax, which is a carbon copy of what the PPC platform has already been months and months ahead of time. But yet, you're still going to reach the Paris Accord targets that Andrew Scheer has said that he is going to stay with. So how do you expect to cut the carbon tax, but still make the targets? And you've also said that you want to build the pipelines. How are you doing all this? Is this magic?
Mr. Lee is entirely correct in that. We will meet our Paris Accord targets, and these are conservative targets. We believe in having an effective climate plan that actually works. Canada is uniquely positioned to deliver to the world innovative solutions that will help solve a global problem. If the solution to climate change and carbon emissions is a voluntary tax, country by country, which is a reduction in the quality of life, we will never see the developing nations in Africa and Asia who seek a better life forego the improvements that they need in order to meet our targets. Canada has proven in the past that we're a creative country that can deliver solutions to the world. If you look back not too far, our CANDU nuclear reactor project through the 70s, 80s, and 90s brought to the world's safest commercialized nuclear reactor technology. We put 19 throughout Canada, 28 worldwide, Chile, South Korea, China, India, Romania, and we have done more with CANDU than we have with all of our green energy initiatives, not counting hydropower, combined for offsetting carbon emissions. And I must add that CANDU is actually helped in significant part by our friends at SNC-Lavalin. So they do good work when they're not meddling in Libya.
Well, Peter, I got to tell you that carbon action plan, the climate action plan that the Conservatives you say have, is non-existent. There is no climate action plan. In fact, Professor Jacquard of the Simon Fraser University was quoted as saying in The Spectator that the Conservative plan is vague and non-existent or non-detailed. That's an expert on climate matters. Whereas the same professor said in the same article in The Spectator that the Liberal plan for the climate action plan is fair and reasonable and makes sense. In fact, most economists, if not all economists, and most experts in the field believe that the Liberal plan for the climate action makes sense. In fact, over 50 measures to fight climate change have been introduced by the Liberal government over the past 4 years. They've also invested in better public transit in communities. They've invested $2 billion in the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund, and they've made the largest investment in nature conservation in Canadian history. These are all things that the Liberal government has already done. They also plan to do more. I've mentioned some of the things earlier.
They do plan
Well,
to do
that's-
more, raise the carbon tax to 100 per ton.
Mr. Urquhart.
As far as the conservative climate plan goes, it's pretty clear what will happen. First of all, you set the lowest targets in the industrialized world. And while Harper was there, he did nothing. He did nothing to achieve those targets. And I must admit that the Liberals haven't done much more. The
Well-
Green Party is the only party that will actually meet the targets that are required by science for us to avoid runaway global warming. And this election is a climate referendum. The next election will be too late. Unless we do something about global warming, the runaway global warming, we are not going to have another election where we have an opportunity to elect a government that can do something about it. As far as the Conservatives go, and the Liberals, I want to see action. We hear words. So far, the Conservatives, what they have done, and I'm talking about your provincial counterpart, Mr. Ford, is done everything that he can to dismantle any progress that we've made. So to say that the Conservatives have a fine climate plan with the weakest targets in the industrialized world and no desire at all to meet them is absurd.
And you're right, David, because the Conservatives
20 seconds.
have, the Conservatives under Mr. Harper, and Mr. Scheer is just a ditto of Mr. Harper, they abandoned the Kyoto Protocol and they're climate action obstructionists. And I have to tell you that the Liberal actions have been fair and reasonable, and they are good plans. In fact, with the oil pipeline, David, as you mentioned, Canadian society is complex. We cannot just destroy a whole industry all at once. We have to transition into
I'm going to
climate
jump in
action.
because we have to get everybody to have a question. Mr. Diakowski, it is your turn.
The Liberal carbon tax pricing, if you want to call it, I pay income pricing, I guess, every year. The Liberal carbon tax is going to crush Canadian businesses and industries, even with trade-exposed exemptions. How do you say what's trade-exposed in 2019? We're going to export our remaining manufacturing overseas to some of the dirtiest jurisdictions on earth. Under Trudeau's carbon tax plan, we are going to see global emissions rise. We are going to see more environmental disasters in more countries. We should be making things in Canada, the cleanest place in the world to make things, and we should be using Canadian energy to do it. We should have pipelines bringing clean, ethically sourced Alberta petroleum, the most ethically sourced, safest produced oil in the world to our East Coast refineries
Need a
instead
question.
of buying them from Saudi Arabia.
Need a question.
Well, my question is for Mr. Duval. Scott, in 2018, Canada saw a staggering number of asylum claimants, well over 50,000. 20,000 of these individuals entered Canada by crossing our border illegally. Canada is a uniquely welcome, opening, and warm country, but this stresses the integrity of our immigration system. Jagmeet Singh's immigration critic, Jenny Kwan, has openly called for Canada to suspend the Safe Third Country Agreement with the
Need a
United
question.
States, allowing anyone in the United States to claim asylum at any border crossing or airport. My question is, how would a Jagmeet Singh NDP government pay for the tens of thousands of new asylum claimants the policies you support would bring?
Well, thank you. I mean, we have to look at our immigration system and our refugee system in a fair and compassionate way. We've got a lot of war-torn countries out there, and people are actually trying to cross into borders where they can get safe haven. I mean, you got to think that if that was your children or my children, I would be doing the same thing, doing anywhere I could to make sure it's safe. So we're looking at those problems, of those issues, of how can we help in a compassionate way, but at the same time, how can we, what is the costing to some of these provinces? So the federal government has to be responsible enough to download or to give some money, some funding to the provinces that are accepting these refugees in. And that's the problem that they're not doing. And now, so it goes to the provinces, the feds make up the laws, it goes to the provinces, and the provinces turn around and download to the municipalities. And that's where everything's getting gone crazy.
Now,
So,
don't mistake me, I'm not asking about people in war-torn countries, and certainly if I were in that scenario myself, I would do anything that I could for my family. I'm asking about individuals who are already physically present in the United States. Right now, they are crossing at will through illegal crossings. We are going to see, under your plan, under the NDP plan to suspend the Safe Country Agreement, free passage at any one of our border crossings with the United States. We've already seen crushing billions of dollars downloaded from the federal government to provinces and municipalities that can ill afford it. And we've seen other needy people go without as a result. Your plan calls to expand this exponentially. How would we pay for it?
well, there's a cost to it of any of it. So what do we do? Do we just say no and send them back?
To the United States.
No, whether they're coming from the States, or all they coming from the States? I mean,
Specifically from people in the United States.
okay. So we have a process that we have to follow. They make the application and they're there. So what I'm saying is that the Third World Agreement, the SAFE Agreement, we should suspend that, okay? Make them use the proper methods of coming in so that nobody overjumps the queues or whatever they're doing. But these people have to, I mean, they're humans. To turn around and saying we just turn them away and throw them back.
Well, I'm
there's-
absolutely not suggesting that. We have
Okay.
a decades-long history of working with the United Nations, of plucking people from the most dire circumstances in refugee camps, partnering with sponsors in Canada and helping refugees make new lives here. This is nothing new. We've done this going back decades and decades with the UN. This is a new problem that we saw brought about by irresponsible comments by Justin Trudeau, and we see now the NDP calling for something that would make the problem much, much worse. And we're talking about people who are already in the United States.
Well, Peter, I'm not sure on that issue, so I can't comment on it anymore of what you're trying to show
I'm
me.
going to have to jump in here. Unfortunately, open forum, we have run out of time. I apologize, Mr. Urquhart. You were all very answering and very informative and whatever other word you want to use, and we have just run out of time. So thank you for that. It is now time for closing statements. We will go in reverse alphabetical order from where we began. That means Mr. Urquhart is up first.
I didn't have aspirations to be a politician, but I could no longer stand by and watch as old-line politicians ignored the voices of voters. You have the choice of electing one of 4 candidates from 5 different parties. From 3 of those parties, you will get an MP who will go to Ottawa and vote on legislation as the party whip tells him to. The Green Party does not whip votes. My requirement will be to vote in the best interest of my constituents. I want to represent you in Ottawa. I want to vote for
10 seconds.
you on legislation, but I cannot vote for you unless you vote for me. On October 21st, vote Green Party candidate Dave
Thank
Urquhart.
you. Mr. Ugenti.
Thank you to my fellow candidates, Cable 14 and Spectator, for a spirited debate. Thank you as well to the audience for considering each of us as you weigh your vote. Only one vision, the Liberal vision, is truly about community. For families, we're creating 250,000 new childcare spaces, making the cost of your first home more affordable, and making the first $15,000 you earn tax exempt. For seniors, we're strengthening income security by increasing the OAS at age 75 and strengthening the GIS. For our businesses, we're making up to $50,000 in interest-free loans available for new entrepreneurs and investing in the green economy. And on the environment, we'll pursue an ambitious plan of net zero emissions by 2050, and for families, up to $40,000 to make your home more energy efficient. With our liberal plan and your support, we'll choose forward together, and together we'll get things done. I am Bruno Ugenti, and I thank you.
Trevor Lee from the People's Party.
Thank you to the fellow candidates up here tonight, Cable 14, the Hamilton Spectator, and my friends and neighbors of Hamilton Mountain. My name is Trevor Lee, and I am not a politician. I'm here as a concerned citizen, and I'm here to fight for you, to save money on taxes, and the climate alarmists that are out there, which is false, and to build pipelines, create jobs, and increase our economy with trade, international trade, interprovincial trade, and I'm just here to save you money. So if you trust that, you can trust in me. My name is Trevor Lee. You can vote for me October 21st. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Peter Diakowski from the Conservative Party.
In the past year, I visited nearly every home on the mountain, going door by door, listening to your hopes and concerns. This has been one of the greatest, most powerful experiences of my life. Through my time in Hamilton, I've witnessed astonishing growth and transformation in our city, but it's been driven by a real estate boom that's left out many. Business as usual isn't working for Hamilton's families. It's time for a change. This is our opportunity to bring lasting prosperity to our city. And for our country, we stand at a crossroads. Will we continue down Justin Trudeau's path, squandering our future, diminishing Canada's role in the world, losing our values at home, and mortgaging our children's finances? Or will we continue to embrace
10 seconds.
a positive vision, one that recognizes the contributions of our seniors and places the family at the center of everything we do as a nation? Vote for that positive vision. Vote for me, Peter Diakowski, for Hamilton Mountain.
Scott Duvall from the New Democratic Party.
Thank you, and thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. This has been a great discussion, and I want to thank my fellow candidates for bringing their names forward. For many years, we have had both liberal and conservative governments that haven't lived up to their promises. They haven't worked for you. They've always worked hard for the biggest companies and their lobbyists. I hear from people every day who feel their life is getting more and more expensive. It's only fair that the richest 1% and the biggest corporations should pay a little more, so the majority of Canadians don't fall even further behind. I spent years working hard for our community as a steelworker local union president, city councillor, and your member of parliament. I am ready to continue the fight and help make sure life is more affordable, improve public services, bring in universal farmer care, fight climate change, and protect improved pensions. I know people in Hamilton Mountain are worried about serious issues, and I can promise I will always work hard for you. Thank you and good night.
Thank you very much to all the candidates. Thank you to you for watching. Now, here is where your work comes in. We had 1 hour today. I'm not sure 1 hour is enough to fully look into every single platform, every single policy. So you have some homework. There are a number of candidates, the 5 who are here, and I want to put the slide up on the screen. Here is the full roster that you can look for from the Hamilton Mountain riding. Scott Duvall from the New Democratic Party, Peter Diakowski from the Conservative Party, Jim Enos from the Christian Heritage Party of Canada, Trevor Lee from the People's Party, Richard Plett from the Rhinoceros Party, Bruno Ugenti from the Liberal Party, and Dave Urquhart from the Green Party. Go look up their websites. Go look up their platforms. Watch this debate again, cable14now.com. Cable 14, it will be replaying this debate and the others between now and the election. The spec.com, if you're talking to neighbors and they don't know who to vote for because they say, I haven't seen anything, I don't know anything, those are the places. Point them there. You can watch the debate again. They can watch the debate. Do some research, do some homework, and on October 21st, do what all 5 of these gentlemen said. Doesn't matter which one you vote for, but vote for one of them. Thank you again to all of you. Right now, we're going to send it back to the panel at Cable 14. Take it away.
Thank you so much to Scott Radley down there at the Hamilton Spectator. What a night moderating 2 debates. We have so much to discuss here on the panel with a great highlight clip we're going to show you as well from the earlier debate tonight. But before we get to that, there are 2 other candidates running on Hamilton Mountain that have something to say. Let's watch.
Hello, I'm Jim Enos, your CHP Canada candidate for Hamilton Mountain. We often hear political parties talk about progress. Let's think critically about this concept before our freedoms to do so expire. Do you believe the following actions represent progress? Legalizing recreational usage of brain-destructive drugs, legalizing biological males to use public intimate facilities such as washrooms, change rooms, and showers, redefining marriage to be anything other than the union of one man and one woman to the exclusion of all others, promoting and celebrating high-risk sexual behavior, killing innocent children within their mother's womb, permitting ISIS fighters and supporters to live freely in Canada, silencing public scrutiny of public policy. If you believe the above actions to be reflective of progress, then please vote for any party other than CHP Canada. CHP Canada does not deem these actions to be reflective of progress. Quite the opposite. If the most vulnerable boys and girls in our society do not have protection of their innocent lives, then in fact we have regressed to barbaric paganism by sacrificing Canada's boys and girls on the altar of convenience, and we should be ashamed. CHP Canada calls Canadians to progress that aligns with the preamble of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, whereas Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law. In this election, we urge you, do not vote against something, vote for something. By voting for true progress, vote your principles. Vote Jim Enos. Vote CHP Canada.
Hi, my name is Richard Plett. I'm running for the Rhinoceros Party in Hamilton Mountain. Fentanyl, opioids, free expression, having enough income to support themselves and their family, the environment, and the future. And it was a surprise to me, but buses and transportation, including safety of bus drivers, are just some of the concerns that I've heard from Hamilton Mountain residents. What we have been electing are just self-serving and do not much of all. And this is putting it mildly from residents of Hamilton Mountain that I've heard from so far. 30,000 never voted in the last election in Hamilton Mountain. Please consider voting Richard Plett this time. I run because I see what we have elected in the past and send to Ottawa and never do what they say they will do. I am vastly different from anyone else running, and I will listen to you and find ways to accomplish making things better, though it will be a struggle, but I am very capable of that task. Thank you for your consideration, and I will be knocking on doors. I will do as many as I can. Please don't hesitate to make contact with me yourself. My phone number is 905-805-4646, or you can contact by email at plettrick@gmail.com. That's PLETTRICK@gmail.com, or you can find me on Facebook under Richard Plett. And thank you for your time.